welcome back. This is part 2 of the intake systems. If you did not hear part 1, go back to last week's and tune into that podcast first, because this will be the continuation of the show. So those of you guys all caught up, we're ready to dive back in. Here we go with part 2.
Right.
Most of you guys don't have a damn process. There is no, it's the non-process is I'm going to pick the phone up whatever somebody calls and I'm just going to answer the phone. That's the nonsense. That's
Right.
the no process. That's the I'm just going to hustle. I'm going to grind. I'm going to work 80 hours a week and I'm going to I'm going to do this. When the phone rings, I answer. And if I get an email, even if I'm in the middle of doing something else, I got to respond to that email right now. Me personally, it's like that's no process. And I think establishing just before you even get into what the process needs to be, it's identifying that I need one.
Oh, yeah.
And seeing that whatever any process is going to be better than having no process at all and just being just subject to the environment as it comes around. What would you say to an attorney that they don't have a process, they feel like if they don't answer the phone all the time they're going to miss out on deals, and so if they get an email, they go right after it. If they get a call, they're going to pick it up, no matter what they're in the middle of, right? And they're gonna put their family life on the back burner for it, right? They'll stay later into the office.
Yep.
They'll take calls at home because, hey, I'm going to miss out on the business. This is very common, by the way. That's why I want to address that and see, like, what would you? Why would someone not want to do that? Like, why would you tell me not to do that? Because in my mind, if I'm just starting out, which I've been in that place, so I know what it's like to start out and feel like every lead that comes in is manna from heaven, and I have to baby it and hold it and treat it like a little egg and make sure that I get it. But every one I treat that way, and obviously we know the pitfalls for it. But what would you be your initial kind of statement to somebody that's in that position?
First off, I'd say I've run all the numbers, and the number of good cases or good clients that come in after, I'll say 6 o'clock, after 6 p.m. or on Saturday and Sunday is really, really small, especially those after 6 p.m. clients, right? New ones.
Right.
But I'm going to say you don't have to have it. You don't have to go full into this screening process, right? You should not just have it go to voicemail or Google Voice or whatever, Google Answering, whatever that is. That's a bad plan. But you can find an answering service. You pay hourly or pay per minutes is what they do. 6 o'clock, you can forward all your calls to that. And you can even, if you're worried about missing that one call, right, that one, you can have them ping you or send you a text separately if the client says they're a new prospective client. And that will at least put a little bit of a barrier in front of everybody calling you. Because then new clients can get to you, but you can explain, oh, I only get new clients. Normally, for anything else, follow up, call me during business hours. So that's a way to manage that fear that you're just going to miss it, right? Is get the answering service, find one that understands, and have it send it to you. But I can tell you, I've run all the numbers, and generally, it doesn't, you're not signing good clients after hours. It's kind of like when I was first starting out, I was hungry. I needed every client. I thought I did anyway. And I got a call on Christmas Day with somebody talking to me, trying to get me to hire to get their husband out of jail. And of course, they didn't have any, and I answered it, right? It was like 11 o'clock. It was after presents, but before lunch. So I'm like, okay, I'm not a terrible person, right?
Right.
It's terrible. They got no money. I spend 15 minutes talking to somebody who doesn't have any money at all to hire me and somehow wants me to magically go visit her spouse who's in jail, get him in front of a judge on Christmas Day, all for free, basically, or can I just pay you in the future? And I think about the car wreck clients I've talked to after, at those crazy hours, and usually they're terrible too. Or they would have been perfectly willing to talk to me at 7 a.m., right?
Yeah.
So the numbers don't make sense to do it, but if emotionally you can't handle it, get an answering service, set up some criteria with the answering service so that new prospective clients, maybe they go to you. You get an email or a text, so then you can call them and have them even say, hey, he'll call you in the next 30 minutes. That's one way.
I think that sounds like a good Band-Aid, but I would even push even hard. Like, dude, you don't need to do it.
You don't. You absolutely don't need to do it. There's no need.
That's where your mind has to. This is why a lot of what we do in Legal Edge is dealing with the way you think. Way more so than the tactical side. We'll sit and map out a lot of things for our clients to get you to where you need to go. And that's pretty easy. But what's not easy is getting you to mentally get over these barriers that you've built in your mind that this is just a great example of one of them, right? That I have to take those, and it's realizing, hey, I've got a whole modality. I've got to change the way I'm approaching all of this in order to build and grow and expand past what I currently see. Just like what at the beginning of today's show, right? Where you're saying, man, my life is far surpassed anything
Yeah.
I ever thought possible when I was beginning into the game. But if you still thought the same way that you did when
Oh, yeah.
160,000 a year was a great year for you, you're like, oh, this would be great. If you still thought the same, you would still be making 160 grand a
Oh, I'm
year.
sure. Yeah. I
No
was
matter what
challenged.
processes somebody gave you. I mean, somebody could have dropped a map to the golden heaven of everything, and you would have even tried to follow it, and you wouldn't have been able to
No,
do
I
it.
mean, and I think back, right? That one conversation sort of shattered that frame I had
Yeah.
because, we were talking. I was like, well, what's the goal? The goal actually, when I started my firm, was to make less money. Right? I'd been doing really well where I was at. I was probably bringing in 200, 225 a year. And when I stepped out on my own, this was the plan. The plan was to work some cases and make like 100 grand a year, but be my own boss. That was my plan, which sounds terrible. I was going to cut my income in half just so I could be my own boss and do my own thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds ridiculous, and in hindsight, I'm like, I'm ashamed I even said that was my goal, right? Because I like
But
money,
yeah.
Trevor, and I was
Oh,
like,
dude, for sure.
why would I set myself up to make less money and be my own boss? Now I didn't know all the things that went with being a law firm owner at the time either, right? I
Uh,
mean, I didn't know about all of the weights and the stressors and all that. I was actually thinking I would just get away from my boss, and somehow the cases would show up, and it would just
yeah.
be okay.
Yeah.
Um,
You put one ad out, and you're just gonna have so many leads, and you
yeah,
just,
that
all
I'm
this is gonna
drowning
be
with them and
great.
stuff, right? And it's going to be
Yeah.
easy to make my 100 grand a year. But yeah, I mean, most of the problem is how you think and your beliefs and your stories. Because you definitely don't have to answer all those calls. I would tell you there's really no need to whatsoever. I've run all the numbers, in my own practice. I know, those after hour calls don't turn into good cases. Am I going to say you might miss one? Maybe, but if you've got consistent marketing and leads and revenue generating on the front end, it's going to consistently produce that stuff, and then that it's going to work out. Uh, because
What do you say to somebody who right now they're like, well, I get it. What you guys are saying is great. All of this sounds amazing, but I just flat out don't have enough leads coming in. I don't have enough of that front side where I can even build systems. Or that's what they feel like, right? These are the
yeah,
stories they're saying. I can't put systems in place because I'm just worried I'm not going to get enough leads. And some months I get good ones, and some months I don't have any, and so there's this inconsistency in that process.
yeah,
What
and
what would you say to someone like that?
I'd say if you are getting inconsistent leads, you're doing something inconsistently, right?
Yes.
And I mean, and that sounds silly, right? Like, but if you're having months where you get 30 leads and the next month you're getting 5 leads, you're doing something different. You may not know what you're doing differently,
Mhm.
but you're certainly doing something different. And that's when we need to, I mean, honestly, if you can't figure out what you did differently, then we need to start time blocking and going through everything to figure
Mhm.
out what you're doing on the good months and the bad months so we can do more of what you're doing on the good months. Because
Yeah.
you now if you've got 0 leads coming in, then you need to start doing some stuff, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but if you're going up and down, then you're changing your behaviors. You're in this feast and famine. You just don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what we got to figure out so that you can quit doing the stuff that leads to 5 leads and do more of the stuff that leads to 30 leads.
Yeah.
Um,
And the
and
crazy part about that is you would when you say that they don't understand it. I know I did this. What happened was I technically, if on paper, like from a very without diving in at all, it looked like I was doing the same thing. But
yeah,
what was happening is I would have that month of a lot, right? I would have lots of leads come in, and I would go through the actions that next month that I was doing the month before. But my mind, what my messaging could, because I was in this different place, and so my mind kept bouncing from scarcity to abundance. And when I was in this scarcity mindset, it was different. My messaging was coming across differently. The way I was advertising, marketing, the way
yeah,
when leads would come in, I mean, I realized there was like, the way I'm asking for referrals is different.
yeah,
I'm not actually asking the same way as opposed to when I'm in this abundant mindset. And so that flow. And so we literally had to get into my messaging. And once we realized that, it was like, oh, Well, that's stupid. Well, of course it's going to, it'd be like 1 month you're good at sales, and the next month you suck. Because literally it's your skill because you're not
Right.
doing the same things you were doing. But sometimes it's harder than just, well, I wasn't making calls, or well, I didn't do good follow up with these leads that month, or I didn't do any outbound. I wasn't doing cold calls. I didn't go knocking any doors, right? Sometimes
Well,
it's the approach itself.
it is, and that's one of the things we encourage people to do is record, right? We encourage people to
Yeah.
record the conversation, either, you know, I don't usually do videotapes, but you can do videotape or you can just do audio. I know audio is my go-to. Both are good though, and audio record your call or audio record your sales presentation, right? Or your
Yeah.
client interview, where you're selling to a prospective client, and you record those, and then you can actually work to learn and get better, right? I get them recorded and audio, and then I have them transcribed, and I usually look at my coaching for me and my associates off the transcription. However, that doesn't always tell the whole story, right? Like if I look at the transcription and I can't find out what's going on, then I listen to the audio, because then there's the secondary stuff like the tone, the pacing, how those conversations really go, that you can't pick up from just the
Yeah.
transcription. But you've got to get that so we can coach and make it better if we can't see what the problem is on its face. And sometimes you
Yeah.
can't. I
Yeah.
mean, I had clients who, an issue comes up and they're like, no, I'm making my intro calls the same as I used to do. And I'm like, really? Because, something's different. And they're like, no, it's the same. And I pull the calls, and it's happened so many times. I actually know what part of the call I care about, and I go to it immediately, and I'm like, see, it's not there.
Hmm.
I don't even have to pull. In that situation, I don't even have to pull the call. I know it's there, but I pull it just so I can show it to them. But it
Yeah.
consistently happens over and over because they're changing what they did.
Yeah.
And they're always like, oh, I didn't even realize it. I'm like, I know, you know.
Hmm.
Uh,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
but
and it's
record,
one, and I think you're pointing out that every part of this process, there is a process.
yeah,
There's a map that you follow, whether it's you as you're the one man show, or you've got a team of people and you've got people you're training. There is a process that has to be followed, not just, every other month, not just when you feel like it, not just when things are working well, every single month. And
yeah,
one thing I've heard you say this a bunch in the past, I say the same thing. Never turn off marketing. You don't ever
yeah,
turn it off. Never. You have to become an embodied of saying, hey, I'm always doing marketing and sales activities. Always, always, always. Because
100%.
if you're not feeding the machine, that I don't care how great your machine is, it's got to be fed. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're always like, let's say somebody, they're like, I'm broke. I don't have any, I'm not, meaning I've got all my money spent. I can't go, drop, 100 grand on ads this month, or even 10 grand on ads this month. I don't have it. Cool. Well, what is your outbound sales and marketing then that way, right? It's like, okay, well, there's still things that need to be done. This gets us back into more of the guerrilla marketing style,
Yeah.
right? But there's still activities happening. It doesn't change, and there's a process that exists inside of it. And every lead that comes in, there's a sequence. I'm helping a
Right.
client right now set up this whole process we're talking about, this whole intake system right now, and she is blown away with how much is actually involved. She's
Yeah.
like, I had no idea. I mean, this is like 50 plus emails, SMS messages, all these things that are integral off of if this, then that. And there's all these things being built out. And in her mind, she was like, well, I'll just turn the ads on. Then people will call me and I'll make money. That was literally as simple as she'd thought it through.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that she was dumb. She's not, it's not ignorant. Well, she is. She's just ignorant. She just didn't realize that was the involvement. And if you may be, as you guys listen, you may be in that place where you're like, oh my gosh. And this is kind of a coming to Jesus moment for you right now, to listen to what we're saying and realize, and this is take some self reflection to your own game right now. What is your process?
Well,
Like, do you
Trevor,
even
yeah.
have it?
When I was broke and had no clients, right? And I have even no idea why I even did this, right? But when I first started my firm, I sent out a letter to every doctor I'd worked with in the prior 4 years, right? Every chiropractor. Boom. I think it was like 75 or 200 letters. I don't even know how much. So that cost me like what? Back then, postage envelope probably cost me $200.
Yeah.
Not a lot of money, but it got me a couple introductions. And like you say, had no money, right? So it wasn't like I couldn't even afford the yellow page ads or any of that kind of junk, or in a small directory, right? And this was before pay per click was even there. But what I figured out, because in the PI space, a lot of times we go to lunch with chiropractors, right? And I was not above, I don't want to say begging for business, but pretty darn close. And
Right.
but what I realized is if I go to lunch with you on Monday and I've got no follow up, you probably forget about me in the next 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks,
Yeah.
right? So it goes away. So I created a follow up campaign for when I went to lunch where they got a letter from me once a week or once every 2 weeks for I think 6 months, right? And these were they weren't totally generic, but they were pretty generic for each one, right? Like I knew some things that would always come up during the conversations. My kids. I was doing P90X at the time, so that came up. There were a couple books.
Hmm.
I built it around. And if you went to lunch with me, you got a letter every 2 weeks for the next 6 months. So it was impossible to forget about me
Yeah.
because you got it in the mail every 2 weeks, and you got little parts of the conversation, or reminders or things like, hey, if you haven't read E-Myth, I had a letter that said I highly recommend it. It's by Gerber, and it talks about systems and setting things up. I talked about, hey, you asked me what my workout program was. It was P90X. None of that cost any money.
Yeah.
And 12 letters over 6 months is what, I mean, I don't even, $12, 24, $50. Um, and it led to business. So
Yeah.
because I didn't have any cash, I had to do that relationship marketing, that guerrilla marketing, and even that needs a system. Is what I'm saying. There was a
Yeah.
system for that. There was a system for before I went to lunch. I pulled any business we had. I pulled your bio from their website so I could talk about that and get that conversation going. And then I had my spiel. Then I talked a little bit about a couple other things. So there was a system in place for even that, even though I wasn't spending a bunch of money. And if you're a relationship, you got to have a system for how often you go to lunch with people, right? Or go to coffee
Hmm.
or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Everything has a system. And if you can't, it's just everything has a system. Everything has a process that needs to work through. And this is the most, what we love, this is the greatest problems to have, right? Once we solve for the intake problems, is to expose all the other systems that you need.
oh yeah,
But if you, this is the one to solve, because if we can solve this one, we can usually, you can buy your way through some of these other processes
you can.
in a real powerful way. And it's just this is that starting point, kind of the kickoff point. So again, I want you guys all to think about this internally. I want you to take a look at yourself. Take a look at your process of routines right there and understand that we have a free training at legaledgecoaching.com that will literally walk you through the basic frameworks of what it takes to put together this intake system, as well as how to get your mindset shifted into an
Right.
operating system that allows you to really build the firm that you guys all want to build. None of you would listen to our show. None of you would be involved in anything that Shane and I do here at the Legal Edge if you weren't interested in growth, right?
Right.
Whether it's you as an attorney with your career or you as an attorney owning your own firm, either one, right? Because this process and everything we're talking about, I mean, nothing is funner for Shane and I than to dive deep into this with somebody who's hungry, that actually wants to go and to build, because we can give you some secret sauce and then push you along the way and help you get to where you actually want to go. But at the end of the day, right, this comes down to you being brutally honest, right? And right now we're saying, hey, be honest about, do you have a system from this for the intake? When we talk about marketing and sales and the intake of business into your world, do you have a system? Is there any kind of a routine? What does that look like? And do you need to probably, and I'm confident, because I evaluate my intake systems constantly because I'm always looking at them. I know you do too, Shane. Like we're
I
always
do.
looking and saying, okay, well, let's tweak this, let's move this, let's adjust this. This KPI is coming in this way and this way. But we're talking about build the foundation first. And then once you've got it, then you can start doing these tweaks. And this is the key to getting you to the next step. And it doesn't matter if you have one employee, 10 people work for you, or if it's just you, right? The system itself. And we want to help you with that. So we've got a free training over at legaledgecoaching.com. We'll get you access to it and you just be able to dive in. And then we're there for questions, anything that comes up for you. We also offer a free consultation, like a free call, right? To jump on and we'll dive into your current reality and see, okay, well, what do you need? Where are you actually stuck? And what are some pointers? What are some things you could utilize to springboard yourself right now to be able to build what you want, right? I mean, that's it's really it, man. And I think we could literally go forever on
Uh,
intake. I love
we
sales and
we could.
marketing.
I mean, I could talk about intake all day, Trevor. The only thing I'm going to say too is remember, I've been where these people are, right? Like
Yeah.
I remember having no money. I remember having no clients. I remember having no staff, right? This my first staff, that my first paid staff member was the next babysitter that I could only pay for 2 days a week.
Yeah.
Uh, my free staff when I was doing uh, jail mail was my kids. We'd put on a cartoon and they would put the stamp on all the postcards, right? Because so they were prepared for the next the next step, or addressing letters, or my wife opening mail while watching the soccer game because we didn't really have a mail person in the office, so it was her.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, so I at each of these levels, I've been there and I've done it, right? So, and I know about the constraints of having money and marketing, and or can I hire a staff member? I know about all that pressure,
Yeah.
um, and there are systems that we can put in place that start to alleviate that, and they don't cost a bunch. And then once you've got the systems in place, everything gets a whole lot easier. I mean,
Yeah.
100%. So,
Yep, it does. And not only have you been there, but you found out how to work through it by making mistakes. And these are the mistakes that we want to help you avoid.
yeah,
Right? It's like you don't need to go reinvent this wheel. Come into the game and we'll show you this. Like I said, we're giving you the training for free. There's no obligation for anything. There's no pitch at the end of it. It's just a free training. So
yeah,
go get access over at legaledgecoaching.com. Get you right in there. And if you got value from today's show, go ahead and share it up with somebody else that would also get value from this show and understanding kind of the mindset and the intake side of it. Maybe one of your colleagues, maybe it's you who you kind of feel the burning sensation in your heart. You're like, I need to do something because if I don't fix this, I'm going to continue down this overwhelmed road, and it's not going to ever get you where you actually want to go. So share the show up. We appreciate you guys being fans of the show. That's how you help the show grow, so others can get value from the show as well. But that being said, brings us to a wrap of today's show on the intake system. Till next time, we'll see you guys later.